And now, Kyle and Steven present another episode of the Go F Yourself podcast.
It's Fix.
Really? Well, that's embarrassing.
The Go Fix Yourself podcast.
Welcome to the Go Fix Yourself podcast, the podcast where we are fixing our worldview one conversation at a time. And today we're we're on the train. We might as well keep rolling. It's just going to be Kyle and I. My co-host, Kyle. Say hi, Kyle.
What's going on, everybody? We are back again. Just the two of us having a lovely discussion, maybe changing the world in this single podcast. I don't guarantee it. But
this is how we started the podcast, just me and you, and the whole reason was like, we're having these interesting conversations on the phone. Why don't we just have them recording, right? And so now we're just kind of going back to our roots. We've been doing this. This is our fourth episode in a row. We'll probably do this for another couple because it's beautiful outside, and we want to do as less work with this podcast as possible.
Yeah.
And so we're just going to be chilling. But we are putting out a podcast. That's the main thing. Now, this one's going to be a day late, but we're putting out a podcast. That's all that matters, right?
For sure. Yeah. Schedules change. Guest lineups change with scheduling and all that fun stuff. It's just a logistics issue, supply chain, COVID, that stuff.
We've talked about this before. So let's just jump right in. What have we been up to this last week? What have we been fixing, baby? I'll tell you one thing that I've been fixing, my golf swing.
Yeah, it needs some work.
Yeah, well, but I finally took them out. That's the thing. If you've been listening to the last few conversations, you know that I bought a really nice set of clubs. And by really nice, I mean $300 on Amazon nice. And I watched Full Swing, the docuseries on Netflix. Mm-hmm. That's what made me buy them. I literally bought them on the couch, and then basically have not taken them out since. And so that was, in the winter when and so finally I texted you and I said, let's go to the driving range. I need a teacher. And that's what we did. We did that, baby.
Yeah. We went out to Anchorage Golf Course on a beautiful afternoon. We met our friend Drew over there, and we decided to get a bucket of balls and smack them. And we did. The whole bucket, and it was awesome.
It was actually pretty good, and I think this is my first set that actually fits me, and so I was actually able to hit the ball, and you're a great teacher too, and so I was like, damn, dude, you should actually teach people, because I was I would do something and I would slice it, or I would just whiff it, and then you'd be like, okay, let's try this, this, and this, and I would do it, and I would get it up, and I was like, holy shit, that actually really worked. So yeah, and you're a pro. That's what I was going to say, and I'm segueing into, you actually just did a pretty damn good job in a local golf tournament, right?
Yeah. So I can't talk about too many details, because some of it they like to keep under wraps in terms of how much is involved and all that.
Oh, money wise.
Yeah.
Oh, they whatever. I wasn't fishing for that.
I know. No, I know, but I'll keep it vague.
Was it thousands of dollars?
It may or may not be.
Several thousand?
I may or may not become a millionaire this weekend.
It's just basically, tell me when to stop.
Yeah. Oh my
really?
God.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we took me and a few buddies who played in this tournament this weekend out at Palmer Golf Course, had a great time. It's if I could give that experience to anybody that doesn't golf, they would be hooked. There's so many fun little things. You'll learn what a Calcutta is, which is if you're gambling, it's your thing. And so in a nutshell, a Calcutta is when a group of people bid on a team that they think will do well. And so the better the players, the higher that they get bid on.
So you're sports betting.
Essentially, but the only caveat is you're not guaranteed to do well. So you could spend a bunch of money getting a nice team, just like any sports gambling. It doesn't mean they're going to win. You're just paying for the odds. And then there's this thing called the horse race. And do you know what a horse race is? Besides an actual horse race?
I was going to say, I've seen, we went to the races, the horse races.
That's true. We did horse.
I know how to play horse and basketball.
Similarly, yeah.
So you could say I've been around a few horses.
You've been around a few horses. Yeah, so a horse race is essentially where you have a group of people either playing as a team or individuals, and you all start on a hole, and then you eliminate the worst scores each hole. So let's say so each hole you drop off the worst people that did on that hole until it gets down to one team or one person.
Okay, that's cool.
And it's like everybody's out there. There's like 150 people in golf carts like surrounding you, watching you hit every shot. And so it's like your experience of pressure.
Yeah, that's really I would
you'd pee yourself.
Botch that,
I guarantee
for
it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's I mean, even the guys that are experienced, like they're like, man, that was nervy. My hands were shaking.
I bet.
Bead and all this stuff. So great weekend.
Yeah. So there's something else that I was learning from you about golf that I don't know. So I mean, I don't know anything about golf. I do like to watch it, and I like to watch like the the docuseries Full Swing, and I do enjoy like, oh man, he really got all of that one.
That one, yeah.
Oh baby, and then especially when it's like down to the wire, right? And it's like it's exciting to me to watch, but I do not know the lingo, and I think that's the one thing that really was a surprise. It shouldn't be though, because I've heard some of these terms for a while, but it's very sexualized. Golf is a very innuendo sensual sport. You got the shaft, you got the stroke, you got the
balls,
holes. You got holes, and I mean, just like even when you were teaching me, it was like put your hands on the shaft. It was like, oh no, I don't know what you're into, but that's not for me, baby.
That was before we even got to the course. Yeah, that was what was wild.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyway. It's there's just a lot of things that like I don't even think about. Like we all make jokes about it, like when we're golfing, but like somebody new to it, when they hear like, we just need to put it in the hole as quickly as possible. And stuff like that, where people are like
in and out. Yeah.
Interesting.
It surprised me. The one thing, but I did quite enjoy that part.
Yeah. Like what we did was we did driving range, right?
Right.
We just did driving range where we hit some balls at some random targets and had a fun time chatting. So like that's obviously very different than playing golf, where it's like kind of an adventure, I would say.
Yeah.
You're going to a new hole. It's all different each time. So driving range is a great place to start, but you got to get the full experience of playing all 18 holes.
See, I don't know if I'm there yet, as you could have told. But anyway, that was fun. I enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to go out sometime soon. We got sunshine.
We got to do it again.
We have sunshine hopefully coming out. And so we'll definitely have to go again. And I'll have to. It's nerve wracking. And I think that's the one reason I was like, I don't know what I'm doing when I get to the driving range. Like I'm so new to this, like this sport, that I'm like, okay, where do I go to get the balls? Where do I go? So it's still very new, but you were there, and you were like a fucking everybody knew you. You were a rock star, but you were like, hey Dave, hey, what's up? Hey.
One-armed John, what's up, dude?
Yeah.
It's a small community. Yeah, you'd go.
He did really good. Yeah, he did really good.
Yeah, it's like a whole community kind of vibe there, like once you've been involved in it so long. And like I've said, is like a lot of people look for like some sort of community to get involved with. That's why they like golf, is like I might as well go out and have beers with my buddies and do some sort of sporting activity, get away from the family for 4 hours and be with my buds. And so once people kind of hook onto that, like you get hooked, because it is one of those things. There's great courses all over the world you can go play, and it's just It's a lot of fun.
That is the thing. Like, because I have buddies who, and we've talked about golf enough for this podcast, but I have buddies who like love to party, right? Love to drink, but then like they will be on, like they'll drink all night, but they will be on the course at 7 a.m. And I'm like,
oh yeah,
that I just don't even know. Like I don't even want to wake up early when I'm drinking, like stay up late night drinking or partying or any sort. And so it's just that it gets them out and going. There's something
that should tell you enough. Yeah.
There's something there. I'm like, okay, there's something, I played golf. I played 9 holes. I played 18, but I don't know. It never stuck. And so I'm on the search for more hobbies. I did actually pick up a different form of painting this week.
Really?
Interesting enough.
What kind of painting are you? Is it finger painting? Is it using any organ on your body?
Yeah.
What is it?
I ingest paint.
Oh
and
my
then,
God.
And then I pee
Metamucil.
Yeah, exactly.
Comes out like a shotgun.
No, I use these things called Posca markers. And I just bought a bunch of them. And what they are is like literally like paint that kind of like soaks up this like pen marker basically. And so what it is, and I just did a first thing about it yesterday. Let's show the people my cute little drawing.
Life aquatic.
Yeah,
that's what I think of.
I
just look at it.
I drew it and then I was like, maybe this is a little too soon. So for those that are listening, I drew this like just a cartoony looking submarine in underwater with some seaweed and fishes, and you see the sky above the water. And then as I was like inking it and painting it, I was like, I forgot about the whole Ocean Gate scandal.
Jeez.
But anyway, I'm kind of obsessed with this now.
Interesting.
And so I've been drawing more because I drew as a kid, and I've been doing a lot of work on myself. I've talked about that in the last few weeks, but one of the things is like, I miss having like hobbies, right?
Yeah.
I miss
Stuff
having
to do outside of work.
Yeah. And like when I was a kid, I was like drawing all the time because I didn't have social media. I was drawing all the time. I was painting. I was, writing. Like I just found a bunch of like old story ideas when I was a child. And when I mean a child, teenager. So I'm just like, tapping back into that, like trying to find something that works for me. Those Posca markers are just so much fun because it's literally like paint. You're pushing around paint, but it's not like, actual markers. You can, if you make a mistake, you can go over with one and just, block it out or cover it up. And so it's really, I'm loving it.
So what did you do? So like, let's just take that for an example. Like you sat down with a blank canvas and you're like, I'm going to go aquatic, or what? Well, like, what was your whole like?
So
this is what I'm going to do.
I looked up drawing prompts online, and then so basically I was just like, I want to draw something. I want to take the next hour and just work on a little sketch and then paint it, and then call it good. And I don't want to share this. Like that's another thing too. Like I think I do a lot of art for myself, but really it's like, I'm going to post this and this is how cool it's going to be and everybody's going to like it and comment on it.
Give me the likes.
Right. And so I think this is like, I'm like, I don't want to post any of this, even though I just shared it on this podcast, but
you did.
Nobody watches. And anyway, so I just looked up, like I Googled like drawing prompts and it was like, draw a submarine in the ocean. And I was like, okay, boom. And so
I'll do it.
Yeah, I just drew that. And so then I colored it up and had some fun, put some music on. And it was just a really, like, I was like, so I've done a couple of those on different other pieces of paper. That was like my first time I used that sketchbook. And so it feels good. I'm like finding little hobbies like golf, trying to pick that up, and painting and drawing, get back into that childlike inspiration. I feel pretty good about that stuff. I think that all has to stem from my taking a back seat and working on my mental health. And it's like I'm trying to find other avenues. So that's something I did this week that I'm really stoked on.
Interesting.
And,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think I think that's cool. I think you need to find hobbies. I think everybody needs to just dabble in a bunch of stuff and find what you care about and go back to what you did when you were a kid a little bit more, unless it was drugs. Don't do that, you know. I mean, depending what kind of drugs.
Yeah, I mean, we had a good talk about drugs last week.
Mushrooms. Mushrooms are different, in my opinion.
I do. I agree. It's funny. I talked to my dad, and sorry to out you, Dad. But I was like, "Hey, did you listen to this week's podcast talking about last week's podcast?" And he's like, "I did." And usually he will just keep talking and be like, "Oh, I liked it when you guys said this and blah blah blah." And he just that's what he ended with. He's like, I was like, "So did you listen to the podcast?" He's like, "I did."
And what'd you think, Dad?
Exactly. That's what it was. And he's like, a lot of the talk wasn't for me, but he's like, you're an adult and you can make your own decisions. And I trust you to make the right decisions for yourself. And I was like, you know what? I know what he was trying to say. And I was so, I don't know. I was like overwhelmed because I was so I felt grateful. He's like, oh, I was like, that is such a nice thing for him to say. Like, I don't agree with it, but I trust you to make the right decisions. Like, it's just like passing the baton. And he's like, you do with it what you want,
Son, you can do your shrooms.
Yeah.
You can talk about playing with yourself in front of God. Because that.
Oh my God. I forgot about that part. Yeah, that was
I didn't.
That was that was a wild moment. So yeah, if you're just listening to this podcast, that's
go
the
listen
shit we
to the
talk
last
about.
one if you want to hear a tangent that I immediately regretted once the words came out of my mouth.
Kept it in.
Yeah, no, totally. Because one thing I've recently started doing, and I haven't really tackled it super hard, but I've started making kind of a joke section in my notes, because I've always remembered I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of like a funny bit or like a funny idea or a funny concept.
So like maybe for example, my mind just went, oh, bazinga. That's a funny word. Kyle, you should say bazinga. So did you write it down in your notes, like a funny word or a funny sentence?
No, not quite.
Like,
so let me take a
great beard of Odin or whatever, Let me hear.
Well, so just kind of like it's like joke ideas, and one of them.
Not for just the podcast.
Not for the podcast, but just like in general,
like
because I always think of stuff and I'm like, oh, that'd be funny. I should write that down. Never do, and I forget about it, right? And so actually, one of them is God watching people's first time with various things. Being raised religious, and this kind of goes back to the last episode, but like kind of thinking about God in a very human way that we do. You're kind of like, man, he's just watching everybody do all these things, and you always kind of picture innocent things, like the birth of a child, the first cry, the walking, the talking. And then when you get into the teenage area, then you're like, oh God, I hope he didn't see a lot of that stuff, like, little Steven at the computer, like boobs.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Oh,
and
I remember
that's my thing.
I remember my dad, I'm outing my dad again, but we were working on this like project, and it was like before porn was really a thing on the internet, before I knew about it. But this is how I found out that you could look at naked ladies on the internet. We were working on this project, and it was like we were putting a bunch of animals on a poster board. So we had to look up animals, print it out. He Google searches. This was like, maybe this was before Google. This was like safe search off, not even a thing, right?
Yeah.
It was like beaver. Yeah.
I wonder if they've ever been bald.
That was, and then like immediately it came up, and I'm sitting there too, and he was like, "Okay, computer over," and they just like he just literally, without even closing out, he just like pushed us away, and then like moved me.
He just takes the computer and throws it against the wall.
But little Steven was like, "Bling!" Whoa, hold up.
You mean I can search the word beaver?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't wish, that the evangelical way that we grew up. There was a lot of guilt there, a lot of shame there for what I was doing. So yeah, definitely that was a tough way to think about stuff. Like he's omnipresent. Yeah, he's omnipresent.
Yeah, he's everything.
He's everywhere, and he's watching you.
All knowing,
everything
all seeing. Yeah.
So be careful what you're doing.
You know what my favorite? Yeah, my favorite trick as a young child with access to the internet was Yahoo. It was kind of my first browser, and so I was like, what would keep me under the radar, right? If anybody started doing a little
beaver.
I didn't think of that one. I was
no one does. No one does.
I'm sitting there. I'm like, what's gonna? I mean, I like actors and actresses.
Yeah.
And I prefer them to be adult. So adult.
Oh my god!
Because I'm like,
you're so fucking smart. Dude.
I know, and I was like, because
my god.
Then if I get questioned at whatever age I was, they'd be like,
"Oh my god,
Macaulay Culkin is a child actor. I'm looking for the adult ones, like full grown."
Smart. I like how you were already thinking, like, how am I going to get this past my parents?
How am I going to cover up this track?
It goes to like what we were talking about last week about technology and how kids, like, even though you have Aiden's phone like locked up and all this stuff, and I don't know anything about that, but I'm sure he's with his friends and they're looking up something.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. He's seen.
You can't do anything about that.
Exactly. And
you can only control kind of what is under your household.
Right. And so I think like it's interesting how it's like the stuff that we did to get away with that stuff, like what's the new stuff? What are they doing? Because they're growing up with technology. They're growing up with all this stuff. We came up with it, right? I mean, it made after so I would be really curious. maybe that should be one of our guests. Get a teenager.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I want to know the answers to a lot of things.
I think it goes back to like Lonnie's.
Lonnie's
podcast
with his daughter is like, it would be a good way to stay in the loop and keep like the conversation open because there's only so much you can do. You can't send them to a nunnery and like just be like, you're not going to live life. You can't. I tried.
You could.
Yeah.
What if we had Aiden on?
Oh boy. I don't know. That could be a train wreck.
Or it could be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me, when was the last time you saw boobs on the internet?
Yeah. What are boobs? Yeah. That would be an interesting conversation. One other thing we did recently, though, we got to see Medium Build once again.
We always talk about this guy. He's our favorite.
Yeah.
We saw him, Anchorage Concert Association put on a free summer concert at Hilltop. So for those who don't live in Anchorage, it's just local
ski hill, pretty much.
Yeah, ski resort, and they're doing like concerts every week. And so one of the concerts was Medium Build, who we've had on here before. Episode I can't remember, and another episode I can't remember. Man, that was such a fun night, wasn't it? Like it had to be like upwards of 1,500 people show up.
Oh maybe? My god! All the parking lots, they had overflow parking like down the road for like a mile. It seemed like. I am trying to get okay. I have this problem. I have a lot of problems. I'm impatient and I'm quick to anger. Those are my two bugaboos.
That's
right?
Human. It's just the human.
It's not even human. I mean, there's some people that do, and some people like Molly's super patient and super loving and understanding, and I am the opposite. Mm-hmm. And so when we decide to do stuff as a family, I'm generally like, I don't really want to always bring the kids.
I see.
Because I want to enjoy something. Like sometimes, like I wanted to take her to see Medium Build and enjoy her first time seeing, right?
Yeah,
and just be like, we're a couple out on the town.
Yep.
Her idea was to bring the kids. And I'm like, you know what? That's good. It's like a family thing, a big family festival. But
You're saying you can't have a good time with your kids?
No, I'm saying that it's harder
Okay.
to have a good time sometimes because it involves you basically giving up your self enjoyment when you're
Yeah.
like, I want to go to a concert and I want to watch it. Like, I like to go to concerts and I like to watch the musician and like,
Right, but you have it, you know, a little
you have to
baby,
be like,
and you also have a teenager. Where are they?
What are they doing? Are they being smart?
Drinking beer. Where'd they get the beer? Oh
Exactly.
my gosh, Caroline's smoking weed. Wow, she's only 3 years old.
She's doing lines again. Jesus. But I don't have again. I don't have the ability to like enjoy a moment like that because I'm always very analytical, but like I'm always thinking about like, what are they annoying are they standing in front of somebody? Are they like tapping on a stranger? And so it makes it harder for me to enjoy a situation like that.
Is that just parenthood? Is that just because I mean?
No, I think it's just me because there's a lot of parents that are just free care, like, you know, they let their kids just run and do.
Well,
and I'm jealous.
Some of those parents need to tighten up a little bit more.
There's a middle ground, right? There's a middle ground where you're a good parent, but you also let your kid do stuff. And so I have a struggle kind of letting go, because I'm always I just want everybody to have a good time versus my children annoying them. I hate to be that parent where it's like, where's this kid's parent? Why is he, you know?
I get that.
Yeah. So
did you enjoy it though? Did Molly enjoy her first
Molly
time
enjoyed it. She got to meet him. I talked to him before before the show started. Like I saw him over across the fence and he was like, hey, and we gave each other a hug. And I was like, my wife really wants to like just meet you because
I'm so bummed because because Alicia said the same thing. There was this one time I saw him at Beartooth and it was just like, I don't know, I was feeling like huge amounts of social anxiety just being there anyways. It was for like an event and I didn't really know many people, but we were like in the beer line and he was like 3 seats down from the beer line and I was with Alicia and I didn't introduce her to him, but he was like, he wasn't busy. He was like, he was with his friends and he was talking. And so we just kind of was like, hey, how's it going, bud? Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. And then I should have introduced her right there. And she even pointed that out later. And so ever since that moment, I've been looking for a moment to introduce her and just be like, hey, you know, Nick, meet Alicia. Alicia, meet Nick. I just want that moment. I'm so jealous that you got it. Because, I mean, here's another thing too. Like we probably won't, you know, see him as much.
Won't have that opportunity much longer to some extent. I think he is friendly enough that he would always make time, but you are kind of seeing a window closing with moving and all that stuff. But so we saw him and Molly was like, hey, let's go over and talk to him. And at that very moment, you know, he's having some issues with like selling some merch because the phone wasn't working correctly and all these different things. And I just was like, I don't want to bother the guy at like this exact moment. But a couple minutes later, he freed up and he was standing there. I was like, can you please meet my wife real quick? And he was like, I would love to. And I'm like, that guy's got to be careful because looking into those eyes and the way that he hugged my wife, I'm pretty sure he could easily be a cult leader like in a year.
Yes. Oh, I guarantee you he could. I'd
follow him.
I'm in it.
I'm the treasurer.
How many times did we talk about him on the podcast? And then like, you know, ever since we've had him on the first time, right? Back in last year, almost a year, you know, in a month. And so we talk about this guy a lot. And we love him. We love his music, but also like if he wanted to start a cult, I do not care.
Called Medium Filled. Yeah.
Oh, let the medium fill you up inside. And it's a lot of like medium cheddar cheese. You know, maybe
all the shirts are size medium.
Yep. And there's like a medium sized drinks, only medium sized drinks. It's all, you know, I'm in. We're
gonna actually get that off the ground for
what
him
if we,
now.
What if we? Yeah, we should start now. The medium filled cult.
Yeah, I'm medium filled. I mean, it's got a good ring. So,
do you know our Lord and Christ, our Lord and Savior, Nick Carpenter?
He's also, ironically, he is a carpenter, just like the other guy.
Crazy.
Crazy coincidence. So go check out his stuff because, you know, he's not going to be in Alaska much longer. And, you know, I know there's a few more shows coming up. I think a couple more.
He's got at least one this week.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know. But I'm really hoping I can have I can introduce Alicia to him just before.
You better do that.
I know, because it's always hanging on my head. Even though there was only one time that she said it, I've just been always thinking it. When we went to Hope, I was like looking for him to introduce her. And of course, she leaves one night, and then the next night we go to the show, and of course we see him and meet him and talk for a second. So I was like, damn it. Anyway, so Nick, if you're listening to this, first off, we love you and we talk about you all the time on this podcast, but love for you to meet my wife.
And the cult's happening.
Maybe
it's happening.
I don't know. Maybe we go on a triple date. I don't know.
I'm game.
I don't know. Anyway,
tell me how was Barbie? Because I know you saw that.
Oh, Barbie was honestly great.
Why was it great?
Well, here's the thing. If you are a white man, conservative white man, and if
strike two for me.
If you're a fan of our government and you're a fan of how things have been done the last 70 years, or at least even say like last 50 years, you won't be a fan at all, because basically the whole idea is it's
women
very
can
feminist.
Do things.
Yeah, no, I mean 100%. It is almost that's not the full theme.
I'm skipping it.
It definitely, like, for me, I've been tearing down some walls, and so like I was like, oh yes, let's go. But I mean, like, if someone's a conservative Christian and been in that world, and it's a lot of white people generally, and I think that they would not like it. And so that's why I think a lot of people like, what's his name? Who like
Ben Shapiro?
Ben Shapiro. Yeah.
I saw his big thing about it. I didn't watch it, but
I started watching a little bit of it, and I couldn't. I mean, like, I get that he's doing a lot of it as a bit. Like, it's not a bit, but it's like he's doing a lot of it for views. And of course he got what he wanted. But man, I just like his thought process was really hard for me to follow. But anyway, I really enjoyed the movie. It's a lot about life. It's a lot about how things have been done and need to get changed. It's a lot about how we should be grateful for where we've come from, but also where we're heading. And so it was really, really well done. I thought it was the sets. It was just such a cool vibe and look. The director, I don't know. It's just like, you could tell she wrote it too. And you could tell that she had like a specific vision and she knew exactly what she wanted. So much so there's a scene in the beginning where she talks to an elderly lady, and the studio was like, oh, we're going to cut this. And she's like, if we're fucking cutting this, she's like, I don't even know why I made the rest of the movie.
I'll cut you.
I mean, it was just basically like, I don't know why I'm here. And I was like, ooh, damn, hell yeah, girl. Like, go for it. Loved the movie. I thought it was great.
Was the Aqua song in there? Because I heard there was a whole thing about the Barbie girl. Or
I mean,
Barbie
not
song.
that we left, when credits started rolling. So I don't know if it was like after, but no, definitely it wasn't in it. But there was a moment where it just like, it was, made me misty eyed. It was just like, made me like grateful to be alive and to be a human, and I think there was like that little bit of like, dolls turning to life. Right. And that's kind of the whole thing. And it just, it made me grateful to be a human.
What would you rather be? So if you had to pick a second place, what would you rather be instead of a human? What would be your like, okay, God's like, hey, you can be anything else except a human. What's it going to be?
I think I would love, this is funny because me and Alicia, we talk about this. She'd like love to be a tree. I think a dog. I keep coming back to the idea of a dog, but then I'm also like, fuck, what if I'm one of the dogs that's like left
at the shelter?
Left at the shelter, or like, is like I've been watching this TV show and we can get into it, but alone, I would not last out there. There's no way on my own. So I'm like, what if I'm a wandering dog? Like I couldn't do that. Would have to be like a trained dog inside with a family or something, with a person. And so, but that's I think that's where I would probably my thing. Dog. What about you?
You'd be a dog. I'd be a great white shark. Obviously. I would just
look at my pansy ass dog, and you're like,
yeah,
I'm a predator.
I'm just gonna eat everything, attack everybody.
You're gonna be real life Jaws.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'll be 40 feet long.
Do you believe in like reincarnation like that?
No, absolutely not.
What do you believe in?
Nothing.
After we die.
I don't know. I am going on this journey like you are in a way, and I'm going to give a shout out to this podcast I've been listening to from my friend Ian Johannes, who we had Chris Bryant on before, and it's his brother-in-law who happens to be my financial advisor. But it's what did I say his name? Is it? Let me see.
Ian Johannes.
The podcast about Christianity, about finding God. Again,
yeah, we texted about it.
And it was the guy in New York that has the church.
Timothy Keller.
Timothy Keller, who passed away.
Wrote. Yeah, who wrote the book, The Reason
Finding God or
For God or something like that. Yeah. And I read that when I was going through my, like leaving the
deconstruction, all that kind of stuff.
You know, that
so
evangelical faith.
In a quick nutshell, we talked about it because we just met for kind of our annual review, and I got the vibe that Ian and his family are still very much practicing going to church, and I can respect people that still do that in this day and age because it feels like there is a big kind of trend to get away from that organized religion. And so when I see somebody still doing it that I feel is an intelligent person, I'm always like, like good for you for like drawing your line in the sand and be like, I'm still going to do this even if it's not a popular thing, because it is very unpopular nowadays. Yeah. And so he basically was like, hey, go listen to this. And immediately I just like downloaded it, started listening. And I wouldn't say I'm looking.
You're converting.
Yeah.
Getting back into it.
But I was like, I want to listen to smart people discuss it because I feel like just dumb old Kyle isn't going to find the answers to the universe, but like I can listen to smart people that are on both sides. And the first episode is essentially a deconstruction of like, why is it that people of genius, IQ, and philosophy and theology and all of these things can either look at the evidence that we have and be like, I'm going to be a Christian. And then some of them will be like, I don't want to be a Christian anymore. Like people that have gone from zero church to Christians and grown up in the church and fallen away. And so he breaks that down into a lot of like, you know, scar tissue that we have of like what we think about God and church and salvation and what happens after death and what's happened to us our whole lives of, you know, Catholic church and what we think that is. And, you know, there's a lot of notions that we have that are like shaping why we believe what we believe. And so if you haven't checked that out, I would highly suggest it. I haven't worked all the way through it, but what is the
podcast?
Fudge. It is.
Is it Timothy Keller's? Is it his podcast?
Yes, it's called.
Let's look that up real quick.
I got it right here. And
is it just Timothy Keller's sermons?
It's Questioning Christianity with Tim Keller. That's the podcast series. And so essentially it's an episode of him giving a lecture, and then it opens up into another podcast episode that's the Q&A, where there's questions and answers from the audience itself that are there for the lecture. And so it's a lot of like, you know, how do you look at a God that can give a child cancer as a God that is good and all-knowing, all-seeing, and all-powerful? Why would he do that to an innocent child? And so it's like, that's one of the big things. Is like, why would a God that is all good, all love, hurt innocents or
Mhm.
kill or punish people that have done nothing.
Right.
And so just the way that, that sounds obvious, like, well, that doesn't sound like a very godlike thing. And so he would rebuttal with, maybe we aren't as smart as God and we don't know what he knows. Like,
that's what I'm gonna, every time I respond that, maybe you aren't as smart as me, and so you can just let this go.
Well, as silly as that sounds, and it sounds like a cop out, right?
It does.
Like it does,
honestly.
right?
Yeah.
So when Aiden, and I'm just using this analogy just because it's something that like I struggle with, Aiden's like, why can't I just go ride my bike at 3 a.m. around wherever I want? Right. And in our heads, we're like, you could get kidnapped, you could get hit by a car, you could do all these things. And in his brain, that has zero chance of happening.
Right.
And in me explaining that to him does not change that for him one bit. He's like, that's not going to happen. And so it's like your knowledge that you have is above his. And so there's no understanding. He just cannot get there. And so I'm like, what if this being that we think is God is a trillion times smarter than us and knows more things? Then, yeah, it makes sense that we wouldn't be able to understand. So,
yeah, I do get that. I do think
it does sound like a cop out, though.
It feels like a cop out, though. Yeah.
Because we associate God as a human that thinks like a human.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we do.
I mean, because we're made in his image. And so you kind of, you're like,
you
compare
use that
yourself to him.
Right.
It is interesting how you're listening to that podcast and I'm listening to this other podcast, and that's how we were texting about it. Is called Dirty Rotten Church Kids. And it's these two guys who grew up very similar to both of us, and then have left the church, left the faith. Actually, not one of them kind of is like on the outskirts, goes to this, what they would probably call heretic church, because it's a church, but it was like a Baptist church. Then it's like transformed into like Rob Bell's preaching. Right. And so Rob Bell is very like, the God of the Bible. Like the Bible is cool, but a lot of it's poetry and just stories. We don't take it literally. So, I mean, like, so this guy is preaching that now from the pulpit. And so one of the hosts goes there, and then the other guy, I think, doesn't even go to church at all. I'm not sure about that though, but they definitely, do every once in a while go to that church. Anyway, so I'm digging into this now because I had therapy with my therapist last week, and basically I'm realizing that I'm holding on to a lot of stuff in my religious past that I didn't even know was there. And so I'm digging into this, and I'm reading books and finding out a lot more about myself and how much I hate who I was when I was a Christian. And I still resent that. And so it's just like learning and reading these books. So Dirty Rotten Church Kids, basically they're like you and me, very much so. Like dark humor is what I would say. I love, and that's definitely related to that immediately. But they have these like questions, and they talk about this stuff, and they have pastors on, they have Christian people on, but they also have like people who have left the church and deconstructed and written books about it. So it's definitely interesting, because one of the people I'm reading a book now is You Are Your Own, which goes off of like 1 Corinthians verse where it says like, you are God's, you are not your own. Right. And so the book is basically like, kind of dismantling the evangelical Christianity. And so, I mean, the question which sparked this is like, what do I believe? What do we believe after death? I don't even know. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't,
but I think
nobody knows, right?
No.
I mean, in reality, it's all a educated guess about
exactly. Yeah.
Your beliefs, right?
And I think that's the thing. Like, you can say like, oh, I 100% believe this, but also at the same time, like, well, that doesn't make it true, right? And so my thing is I'm trying to get to terms with this life as it is. And so what comes next, I don't know. My thinking is like, what's the worst that could happen? Heaven and hell exist? Or is it just blackness? Is it, or is it like, is it literally reincarnation? Like, your soul leaves you, which has been proven, right? So it's scientifically proven that our soul or something leaves the body, and it's like weighed less or whatever.
13,
and then
what is it, 13 grams or something like that? They say
yeah,
that's
something
a
like
movie.
that. Does it fucking, what's that?
Has nothing to do with
Piano?
the air leaving our body, like no
No,
oxygen pumping
dude.
through or anything.
But like, what's that movie? Basically, the jazz player, Disney animated movie, Pixar
Oh,
movie,
uh,
whatever that
yeah,
movie.
right.
Um,
Soul. It's called
Soul,
Soul.
yeah.
Yeah.
Does that happen? Like you actually like your soul goes up somewhere, and then you get to choose like, oh, I can, this is what I want to do. I want to be a dog, or I want to be a great white shark. I don't know. I think that's fucking cool, but who knows? Who gives a fuck? I'm trying to be like, okay with who I was and who I am and what I'm working towards. It's interesting that we're listening to podcasts on the same subject though. And needless to say this, if people are listening to this and we're talking about faith and all this stuff, like we're not making light of it. We're never making fun of something. Like just because we've left the evangelical Christian faith doesn't mean it's wrong. It just wasn't right for us. And so
Yeah.
I think that's important to say. Like I always tell people like I don't make fun of people who are in different religions because it works for them. It gives them hope. Whatever gives you hope is really, I'm like, go for it.
Yeah. I think
Live your life, baby.
I think the first few, maybe couple of years, and even up to pretty recently, I felt a bit of
Calling back.
No,
you're gonna get baptized now.
A little bit like I'm better than you if you're religious, because I've accepted that I'm so rational and so commonsensical that like it doesn't like none of that makes sense. You're so stupid for believing that, and like not as blatant as that, but that was the feeling that would go on in my head when I'd hear somebody be like, "Oh, I'm going to church Sunday." I'd be like, "Oh, geez, what a rookie!" Like I've been there, and so I've really been battling that because I think that's wrong. I don't think that's how you should look at it because.
Yeah.
Like kind of like you said is like if it gives people hope, like that's not something you should really mess with if it's not a unhealthy thing that's happening. And I do think for thousands of years, since mankind, like we have struggled with finding meaning and hope and what happens. Like this is not a new problem. It's hard for me to just like dash it aside as like this is just like a logic problem. Like people just can't accept that we're going to die and nothing's going to happen. So I don't know. It's an interesting road because I think you should take time to find out what you believe, what makes you feel fulfilled, and at least learn different things and how to. What if you're one thing away from reading something that could drastically change your life and that life of your family? Like you just don't know,
bro. I think that almost that thought right there is why I have been like reading so much recently, just because I'm like, what if I read, and it's not just about like deconstruction or whatever. I am reading a book like that. But I'm reading also like a book on self-sabotaging and a book on personality. I'm like, what if I read like that one thing that just changes the trajectory that I'm on? And
For
like
sure.
that's it, that excites me. So it's interesting that you said that because I've definitely been on that path to do that. Anyway, but what sorry, we're gonna change gears real quick here because we can wrap it up. But I think what is something that you've been listening to? We just talked about what we've been listening to.
We got that, yeah.
Yep. What have you been watching, and what have you been maybe reading? I mean, I guess we can go through that too.
Yeah, I've been watching just a buttload, an absolute buttload of documentaries.
That's a lot. That's a
no
lot.
idea. And
a butt?
people's butts vary.
Yeah, there's some big ones and there's small ones, but that's a lot.
This is a big one. On like military or famous battles, famous wars, like documentaries on YouTube. And I never realized how many freaking ones there are that are almost like modern day, where they'll use kind of like top view maps of like the armies, and like show you how famous
risk or something
very much
like that. Yeah.
Like famous battles and like wars. And I'm like fascinated by just how much freaking bloodshed there's been in the past 6,000 years. And how much documentation, because like when you think about like any ancient battle. There's some guy out there in the
Drawing
field
it,
or
writing it
or
down.
up on a hillside,
Yeah.
basically documenting everything.
That would be
And
me. That's
yeah.
videographers. That's the first
That's true.
videographer. He's documenting it.
I also think about like how scary that would be. That'd be like, see that loser up on the hill? Why don't you fire an arrow up at him? You know, and it's like, we're gonna get him.
We
next.
have our own guy. We
Yeah.
don't need him.
Yeah,
we want to spin the story our way. Yeah.
Well, exactly. History is written by the victors, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm just always fascinated by like the just insane life and like that you lived in ancient times. Like
What wars are you interested in right now? What's the
a
thing?
lot of like Genghis Khan,
like that stuff. Okay.
Oh man, like the Mongols like taking over, basically coming all the way across Asia to basically Europe. And like when those, I mean, you have to think about it. Like nowadays we would never have this where this random army that we have no idea who they are would like come into America and you'd be like, oh, who are these guys? Like this was happening all the time where you're just like farming out there and then you see this like cloud of smoke in the distance and you're like, or a cloud of dust.
Scary, dude.
And you're like, what is that? And then you realize it's like 100,000 guys that are coming to like kill everything.
Yeah. Burn your house down, kill you, kill your family.
Worse. Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to know, but
yeah. And so it's like,
I know
it's fascinating.
Parts. I've seen Mulan. Okay. I know.
The same idea. Yeah. And so I've been digging into a lot of that.
The Huns. I had that song stuck in my head all last week. So, which is weird. I haven't watched Mulan forever. That's cool. So you're just on YouTube watching these?
Yeah. And just like, cause there's a lot of free ones and like a lot of the like history kind of like YouTube channels have like some pretty cool ones that I'm like, these are interesting to watch or listen to at least. It's kind of like a podcast.
Yeah.
Where they just have some graphics up so you don't have to watch something, which is kind of nice.
That's nice.
So when I'm working, I'm like listening. I'm like, holy Jesus Christ, these numbers are insane.
Yeah, I bet.
So I'm having fun.
I'm now watching Alone on Netflix.
Yep. Everybody thinks they can do it.
No, I do not. There's absolutely no way I can do that.
You tap out after like probably 6 hours.
No, I don't think I would. I would probably on the boat ride there. I'd be like, you know what, guys, I'm just not feeling this.
Guys, can we turn this around?
But
anybody else want to go back?
It is phenomenal to watch. So if you're not familiar with the show Alone, it's on Netflix right now. The 9th season. It's like one season's on Hulu, one season's on Netflix. I don't get it.
Oh, they did that whole thing.
Yeah. So the 9th season is on Netflix right now. I'm watching that. And basically what it is 10 people, survival experts. They're put into this, out in the middle of nowhere. And they're all kind of spaced out.
Place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Random places, but they're all spaced out so they won't run into each other. And then basically they're given cameras and tripods and batteries and all this stuff. And they have to document themselves. There is no camera crew. There is no like helicopter. There's no drone. It's literally these people documenting their whole experience of, and then they have 10 items. That's the one thing too. So they have a knife, an axe, a tarp, rope, fishing line,
they get
like
to
that.
pick the 10 items, right?
They get to pick their own 10 items.
Yeah.
And then they go out there with this camera case and then they're just left there. So they have to go find their own food. They have to build their own shelter and they're out there. And so the thing is, they are in no contact. They are given a satellite phone to tap out if they want to get picked up, but they have no idea what the other people are doing. And the last person who doesn't tap out wins $500,000. So basically, you have no idea how many people are left. There's 10, starts with 10 people. You're not hearing, oh, so and so just dropped out. You're just out there, and if they come find you, that means you won. And that could be 100 days. That could be 150 days. Like they don't know. So they're like playing the long game, and whoever's left standing is, a $500,000 winner, which is pretty badass.
So remind me, because they had probably addressed this. How do they keep the batteries charged?
I don't know. There's
I know there's like a solar. I'm sure they have like a solar charger or like a battery, but like, they keep those cameras. I mean, like you're saying, they could be out there. I've seen them out there for like 90, 100
there
days.
is a possibility that they might do like wellness checks, I would imagine. And so maybe like these wellness checks, they make sure you're doing all right. And then they
new batteries,
replenish batteries or something like that. Because I would imagine with that comes a lot of insurance. Because what if they're like, everybody has a bow and arrow.
Everybody signed off on like,
you have to, because like, they're like, everybody wants to get a bear, right? Because if you get a bear, basically that lasts you like almost to the, like 100 days. You don't have to go hunting.
That's not my first thought. I'm not
literally
thinking, I'm going to kill a bear.
Dude, that is, I mean, I'm watching these people and it's just, I'm in awe of what they're doing and what the shelters they're building. And just like, also they're making fishing poles out of sticks. And this one guy dyed his hair green so he could cut his hair off when he got there and use it as fishing tie. So it'd be like reflective in the water. And it actually worked. It's insane. Like the just the creative mindset that these people are in, but also the survival techniques that they do, building snares. So if you're into that kind of stuff, watch it. There is a lot of like animal
I don't
killing.
think you have to be into it. Like that's what's wild about that show. It's really well done. Like a lot of reality shows.
I'm not outdoorsy
I know.
at all. I don't like, I barely camp as it is. And I live in the most outdoorsy, beautiful place in the world. And I barely go outside. I'm stuck. I like love my little, garage office.
Yeah, your comforts.
But I just find it phenomenal. I stayed up late till like 2 a.m. watching episodes last night. And I haven't done that in like a while. So I'm obsessed with them. I'm reading a bunch of books. Of course, I've talked about a few of them. The Mountain is Me, which is about the book about self-sabotage. You Are Your Own, and The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. Oof, man, that is so good.
Yeah.
And there's I'm reading The Making of Another Major Motion Picture, which is a novel by Tom Hanks about making a movie. And so I'm reading that too. So there's a lot of books I'm reading. And really quickly, what are you reading right now?
I'm still
the Bible.
Yeah. Every day, just Proverbs, trying to get wiser. No, I still am reading that Daily Dad book about but I'm not reading a whole lot right now. I'm just not feeling like it. And I haven't found a book that I want to read. Nothing has really piqued my interest so much. So I'm sure that'll come along soon. It's like summer. I don't know. Summer's doing something weird to me where I'm just like not in a growth mindset. I'm like in a, I'm in an experience or like a doing stuff mindset, like where I just want to be like golfing and outside and doing all this stuff.
Gotcha.
And like when you're talking about like, well, what are you doing to get closer to your goals? I'd be like, goals? I'm playing holes. That's what that was my
you talking
senior,
about golf? Talking about
that was
golf?
my senior quote. Yes, it was golf.
Oh my gosh.
Goals? I'm playing holes. So
I honestly, I don't, I do love that though, because like you're being more present and you're not like,
I'm not thinking about tomorrow right now.
Yeah, I think that's actually
just
really
like
good.
Having a great time. And then I know once, fall hits and stuff starts going sour, then I'm going to be like, all right, let's ramp things back up, get after it, like start doing our typical winter stuff where we're like, let's make videos, let's ramp up the podcast, let's, when we're hibernation mode.
I put out that poll on Instagram that said like, what do you want to see more from us? And everybody was like funny videos, like unanimously. And so it's like, okay, well, you know what? That's what we're going to do.
You're going to get them. You're going
to get them. You're going to get them straight into your holes.
Oh, I'm in. I'm in for delivering that.
Okay. Well, I have to pee. So let's wrap this up. Everybody go follow Go Fix Yourself Podcast on all social media platforms and gofixyourselfpodcast.com. And we'll see you next week. It'll be just Kyle and I again, I believe.
Most likely. Yeah.
Yeah, most likely. I think that's
we'll leave it as a mystery because we don't know.
It's probably going to be us.
Yep. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for tuning in. Kyle and Steven will be back with a new episode next week. In the meantime, check out GoFixYourselfPodcast.com. And remember to always go fix yourself.